Let's go back to Arc. And we would like to read that file in. If we go to catalog here, we can right click there and we can click on refresh, and nothing. So Arc doesn't by default understand how to read these files, which is a little curious, but there we go. So the thing we need to do is use this JSON to features tool. So we go back to geoprocessing, and which is there, and now we need to go JSON to features, input JSON or GeoJSON. So if we click there, and it sees our GeoJSON file. Good. So click on OK, and the output features is, in this case, is going to be called area poly underscore JSON to features, geometry type polygon, and the location actually we can see, hopefully, will be in our database. So that's good. And we're just going to say, did I suggest changing the name? I don't think I did. I think we can just run with that name. It tells us what it is. So we can click on run. And again, this is one of those things that takes an unreasonable amount of time. And now we can see thank you. Now we can see that we have our area and we have these 4 points. We don't really need the points, so actually let's just get rid of them. But what we want is to be able to see something. So now we need to change the symbology of this. So we go down to symbology, please, and we want to edit that. Click on properties there. So if you didn't get that, that was, let me just do that again. We click on the symbol there, and you came perhaps to this first, and we click on properties. And now we need to define our symbol. No color. We don't want any color in the middle. The outline color that we can set to something. We can set that to red, and the thickness can be 1 point. Click on apply, and we get this red outline there. You can choose another color if you like, something other than a red outline. For me, that makes sense. I'm going to just click save. And so we've now defined the mapping area. So now we're going to move on to the next step. We're going to add some layers so that you can start adding some data to those layers. A lot of what we need to do is going to be, well, we're actually going to create some layers to receive points, some layers to receive lines, and some layers to receive polygons. So we need to create 3 layers for that. Some GIS formats are capable of taking in points, lines, and polygons, but a lot of them aren't. They want to keep things separate. So we have to create layers to receive those. We can also think about creating separate layers for different types of things. For example, if we want to keep land cover polygons, this is woodland, this is grassland, this is an urban area. And then we can have that as one type of layer. That will be an area, a polygon for land use, but we might have polygons as well for who owns property. So that might not be directly connected to the land use. I mean, there will be some correlation there, but we could also have a polygon defining the ownership of lands, and that could be in a separate file. We could actually keep it in the same layer, in theory, with the right sort of attributes, but it tends to make things a little more complicated once we start getting bigger data sets. So that's why we might want to separate those things out. And similarly for lines and points as well, we have different things, different types of things we want to save, even if their geometry might be very similar. So now we're going to create our new feature class. A feature class is a layer for vector data. In terms of ArcGIS, vectors are called features. And we're going to create our land cover feature class. So if we go back to Arc, open catalog, and if we look at our database now, we can see that we've got these two, and we've got the point file that we've now removed from the map, but it's still in the database, and our area definition. But now if we right click on there and we want new there feature class, and then we get this question come up. We do want a polygon, and I think we said land cover, I believe. Yep. And we're not going to bother with M values or Z values. The Z values are 3D data. We're not going to be doing anything 3D. And the M values, again, you can read here, it's to store root data. So if we're doing network analysis and that sort of thing. We're not going to be doing that with this data either, so we don't really need to store that information. So now we're going to just click through some of the many settings here. We don't want Z, get rid of that, just saves a little bit of space. It's not terribly important if you have the Z value in there, but don't worry about it. So click next. That should be fine if we want to just go with land cover undefined, but actually we want to be able to say what sort of land cover it is. So here we have click there, so we need to give it a name. So we could call that type, perhaps. Text, would that be good? Yeah, I've gone for type and text there. That was clever of me. We can actually, if we like, add another column. We can have plenty of columns, but I think type as text, so woodland or what have you, is a good way to go. Alternatively, we can add a column called type, and instead of it being text, we could make it, for example, a short integer, and then translate those integers later on in the symbology into woodland or urban or something like that. So that just 1 means deciduous woodland, and 2 means coniferous woodland, 3 means that, rather than having to save deciduous woodland, coniferous woodland, and grassland specifically for each object. It's a way of shortening the data that's saved. But for now, given the size of this project, maybe we can just leave that as text. Let's go on to next. And the coordinate system, SWIRF99TM, the Swedish National Grid, good. You click on next, this tolerance, yeah, don't worry about that. And then this, fine, accept default resolution, good. Click on next. Yeah, we're good there. Let's just click on finish. And at some point it will finish doing that. Right, so now we have a new layer called land cover. It's not been added to the map. We can right click on it and add to the map. And there it is, but there's nothing in it, so we don't see anything. It's completely empty. If we right click on that and click on the attribute table, we can see that there's nothing in there. If we right click on this GeoJSON import file, you can see there's one object right there, and that's that red line, or the red border around here represents that object because it is actually a polygon object. So we've got our land cover in there in a very basic way. So we also want to create some other layers. So let's do that. I can see an error here that I'm going to have to correct before pushing these instructions out. I should perhaps get around to doing that soon. So let's just add a couple more layers for you. Right click there, and we want to click on new feature class, and now we want some lines. Let's call these roads perhaps, and change that to line. Again, we don't really need Z. Here we might want the M values, but we're not going to bother with those. And we can here add type. And again, we could change the type. We could use an ID number for this, but perhaps we should just leave it as text. And then click on next. That's done. We can click on Finish now. And at some point it will be added. Yep. Good.